Hey y'all, this is Michael, and this is my screencast reflection on knowledge that I've gained in English methods class. So I wanted to sort of distill some of the major points, pedagogic points that I've learned so far in this class. And when I started describing them to myself, they all started with the letter E. So first of all is energy. I don't think this is an idea that we necessarily associate with the English language arts, but this class has shown me that in order to teach English language arts to anybody, you need to imbue it with an energy, a vitality, make it come alive. Another term, which I've been reading about in the news a lot in light of current events, is ecology, in the sense of this class and the teaching of English in general can't be successful without realizing how parts interact with a whole, without how background knowledge, academic language, preparation, all those things are individual parts, but they only make sense when you consider it from the whole perspective. Enactment, in the sense of we can't really teach English, we can't really teach a love and respect for reading, writing, and rhetoric unless we act out why these things are important, unless we sort of perform their importance for ourselves, for each other, and for our students as well. Elaboration. This class has been really instrumental in helping me realize that so much of education is explaining things, elaborating on things, not letting meanings rest, but sort of pursuing meaning, transforming it in the process, finding new meanings that go along with it, which kind of ties in with the next word, enhancement. Not being complacent with our definitions, with how we teach language, but using multiple methods of instruction and engagement to enhance the meanings of things, to enhance how we process and learn things. Finally, these next two words go together, enthusiasm, and I kind of look at enthusiasm as our sort of initial burst of joy when something makes sense, when things are clicking, when we're learning and collaborating together. And then I think enthusiasm, if we're lucky and if we keep being faithful to it, can lead into exuberance, which is a sort of larger kind of energy state that we can bring outside the class as well. I also want to focus on a few of the foundational ideas behind the EdTPA, which we are all pursuing next spring. I wanted to focus especially on background knowledge, which was a really big thing that I learned in this class. And I kind of made my own maps of each of these so I can make sense of them, and also so I could import this knowledge into my own classes that I'm teaching and student teaching in. So to me, background knowledge is fundamental to any sort of educational experience, especially a successful one. And the way I kind of understood it was it comprised a lot of different things that are all working together. So I made these mental maps, these semantic maps, which to me are sort of reminders of energy, of how things have to sort of feed into each other and not neglect each other. So when I think of knowledge, I don't just think of answers, but I think of more questions that lead into connections, lead into relationships, that keep in mind someone's intersectional identities, class, race, gender, beliefs, etc., but also interests, passions, curiosities, and how they've learned in the past, whether it's through books, school, whether it's through being street smart, stuff like that, and life experiences. All this stuff kind of feeds into each other, and this will really impact how we teach our students and how our students learn from us. So that was a fundamental thing for me to learn so far in this class. Also, the emphasis on academic language and vocabulary instruction. I think I've often taken this for granted, and I didn't realize until I've read the chapters on these subjects in this class and learned firsthand in the class how vital these elements are, but also how extremely difficult they can be to teach unless you have a lot of tools of enhancement and elaboration in the classroom. So I kind of mapped this out with some terms I picked up in Burke's book, but which were also described in class. Learning, life, and literature, how all those things kind of interact through different subsections, grammar, style, rhetoric. The importance of examples. You can't really learn anything unless a teacher is modeling examples and then furthermore breaking down those examples into various functions, pronouncing things, contextualizing things, elaborating, analyzing, generating new sentences from what you've already worked with, creating concept maps, strategies for rich and varied language experiences, which is a great phrase, which has kind of entered into my teaching philosophy. Read alouds, keywords, using the dictionary. And finally, all this stuff kind of weaves together into something that also Burke describes as word consciousness, which is a term I really like because it's very holistic, and it kind of, to me, implies that we aren't just looking at vocabulary words and acquiring them in a quantifying type of way, but we're also learning them as ways to enhance our ability to read, write, and think. Finally, I want to focus on one other part of the sort of map of the EdTPA. I'm not focusing on all the parts, just the ones that I'm trying to learn this semester. Close reading, that's central to the whole process. That's kind of at the heart of the matter. And this is another term that I've taken for granted for a long time, I think, just because I've always been an avid reader. But in order to teach close reading, there's so many different aspects and elements that also feed into vocabulary. And I've learned that there are many different kinds of readings. There's first readings, there's second draft readings. There's ways of reading more deeply into the text by using collaboration, group work, by making maps. And also, there's the method of connecting a text to other texts and the sort of things that happen between those texts, the dialogue that can emerge, the new relationships, the use of comparing and contrasting texts, and how both texts in dialogue can create new meanings and new resonances. And I think that's the word that I also associate with close reading, is resonances, things that that magnify their meanings within each other and across each other. Finally, connecting all this stuff to big ideas in the real world. I was glad in a lot of these texts that we're reading that there's still an emphasis on connecting classroom things, ideas, to ideas in the quote-unquote real world. I think that's really critical for students to realize that what they're learning in English class is applicable to life outside the classroom. And finally, there's two words that have been sort of resonating in my mind this 6 weeks into our semester as teachers in training. Those are also two words that I read in Burke's book as well. And I'll leave you with those: sanctuary and labyrinth. And these are the two words that I kind of think of when I think of an English classroom, sanctuary, and when I think of the study of the English language arts and also how to teach the English language arts, I think of the word labyrinth.